All right, so we have at 6:32 here, Bob Lyons, Dan Ramsey, Carrie Schuffner, Carl Stumpf, and Kendra Vokas. So we do have a quorum.
I'm going to call this meeting of the Public Works Committee to order then. We do have a quorum, so we can do business this evening. The first item of which is minutes of our October 10th, 2022 meeting.
Ramsey will move to approve.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second to Dan's motion?
I'll second. This is Carrie.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion regarding the minutes? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and those minutes are approved. Item 2 is minutes of our special meeting of last Monday, November 7th, 2022.
This is
Dan
Carrie
Ramsey
Schuffner. I'll
will-
move approval.
And Ramsey will second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion with respect to those minutes? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and those minutes are approved. Item number 3. Parmenter Street, Elmwood Avenue, and Aurora Street reconstruction, plan approval and bid timing.
Yeah, we're going to get this done yet. We've got sort of the brief summary of the last couple of years, but the important part is Tom Stetzer is with us tonight. Sean Ulsrud, our project manager, is with us tonight. The plans have been updated somewhat. There are a couple of minor things that I think we'll consider yet at the staff level, but they're really minor. So these are in order for approval. One of the more significant changes was this now does include portable temporary bollards that can be installed in the west leg of Hubbard Avenue at Parmenter Street, so that the Stone Horse Green L, can be shut down pretty efficiently. And one of the other more significant changes is structured trombone arms for the stop signs are included now on Parmenter Street at Hubbard Avenue, similar to what's on Elmwood Avenue.
Can you explain that to me? Is that the big overhead stop sign?
It is, yep.
So they'll be installed on Hubbard as well as Elmwood.
Right, so they're in Elmwood, but this
Yes,
plan
I know.
includes those on Hubbard Avenue now.
Oh, good. I was going to raise that point, but I'm glad they're in there.
Yeah, that's in there. So I don't know, Sean or Tom, if there are any other sort of significant changes that you might want to overview for the committee.
This is Sean Ulsrud. I think the only other thing that Tom and I have been talking about doesn't affect the plans themselves, but more of the staging of the project. And I think what Tom and I have come up with is under the project construction staging that was included. Do you have a copy of that, Sean? It wouldn't be in the plans.
The colored one, Sean, the other attachment, the other link in the agenda packet.
Yeah, and it's kind of in both. I mean, you do have the staging plan and the paving plan, let me say it that way, in the plans itself.
There we go.
Yeah,
But it's probably easiest to look at as the full overview. So
Yeah.
let me-
so so the first page there is an overview of the type of work that we'll be doing. The blue, we're doing utility work. The green areas are resurfacing. Elmwood Avenue between Aurora and Parmenter has a few minor utilities, but for the most part, the blue area is the utility work and the green area is resurfacing of the asphalt. So that hasn't changed, but the next page, Sean,
Now that I can actually get to it, I hope.
So Tom and I have been talking about the staging, and I think what we would propose is the blue and the green area. We would come in and we would start in the green area, remove the asphalt, do the underground utility work. And then once that's done, we would remove the asphalt in the blue area, which currently is phase 4. Once that's removed and we make our few manhole adjustments, we would pave with both binder and surface of those 2 areas. And essentially what that'll do is allow us to finish that area before we touch anything on Parmenter, so that we can then close off the orange and the green area, and traffic could still flow down Hubbard, cross Parmenter, through the L, and out to University. So it's just a minor change in the schedule of things, but I think that would work out a little bit better.
We just felt, oh, sorry, Sean, I was gonna say, yeah, we just felt like getting everything buttoned up as quickly as we can around Stonehorse Green, the earlier in the year, the better, just to, that way most of the perimeter around Stonehorse Green will be all done and paved, and then we can focus on Parmenter.
We would have, it would only be probably a day at a time, that when we're working at that intersection of Elmwood Avenue, Aurora and Hubbard, when we're doing the water main, when we're paving, we would need to close the L at Hubbard and Parmenter, just so that we can do that work. But there would be a couple days that section would be closed to traffic. We would then move on to the orange section, which would be phase 2. We would do all the work on that. We would not put any binder down. We would then move on to the yellow area, phase 3, remove the asphalt, do the utility work. Once that's done, we would move to the purple area, which is mainly resurfacing, but we do have at least 1 manhole that we have to completely rebuild. But when that's done, then we would pave all of Parmenter, binder and surface at the same time. So essentially we're splitting the project into 2 big phases, blue and green being phase 1. You're probably looking about 4 weeks there. And then Parmenter, we're looking at probably about 8 weeks.
Do you think there's a chance, and I agree with your overall scheme, which is pretty consistent with what we had previously talked with the committee, that phase 4 would be paved during phase 1, and then phase 5 would be paved with phases 2 and 3, and that's how the plans are set up. But what I'm wondering is, for the Parmenter Elmwood or Parmenter Hubbard intersections, if we could do some thin cold patch or something to make it a little easier for pedestrians or cross traffic while the other phase is being worked on.
Along Parmenter, we running north-south, or are you thinking north-south and east-west?
More for traffic that's trying to go east-west while the yellow is shut down, right? That traffic still can get through here reasonably, and pedestrian traffic too.
Wonder, I guess the only thing I'm thinking is, if we do the orange section and we want to, yeah, cold patch is an option. It's just difficult to get somebody to come in and pave like that intersection. If we wanted to do that on binder or something. Tom, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think too, it's probably not worth an entire mobilization, but I just thought something firm and stable instead of dusty and twisty,
I wonder if even like just asphalt millings all the way up to surface grade, even though they're going to get wasted, perhaps, it might help.
Yeah, that would be a good temporary. We could kind of fill that intersection around the radiuses with millings, roll that out, and that would certainly help.
right? Even if it ramps down and ramps back up.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like a tabletop. I mean, it'll help keep people go moving slow. Vehicular too.
Yeah, we can look into something like that, Sean.
I would have mentioned it earlier, but I just thought of it.
No,
That's what
a good-
dinner's for, I guess.
That's a good thought. We could probably just use those millings as a leveling for the rest of Parmenter then.
Yeah, they could burn them up out there.
That's all that we have for changes to the plan from last year or 21. I'm losing track. It's been a long time.
And I think
Got more gray hairs since somebody started.
I think the overall intent too is to get committee input or concurrence. The staff recommendation is to go as early as possible on this one to at least try to get done in midsummer, or at least the best we can by midsummer with this project.
Could you remind me what the pedestrian improvements are again on Parmenter? It's been a while since I remember looking at this. I'm just
Sure. Let me, yeah, there's a better drawing.
You know, maybe sheet number. Well, the details on sheet 3, Sean, for the island, the plan views on sheet 6. Yeah, with that one too, you just passed it.
Let me go full width. I can't see what I'm doing here on this. See, then it won't let me bounce a whole page.
There
Anyway,
you can see it.
let me zoom in on this a little. If nothing else, this will be the striping and everything that we end up seeing. So this is Terrace Avenue off on the left side of the screen, and Parmenter runs north-south or flat across the screen, if you will. So at the north side of Terrace Avenue on Parmenter, there would be this island, just a central median island with keep right signs mounted back to back north of the crosswalk. And there'd be parking restrictions, of course, associated with the island, because you can't park and drive next to that then, which will in big part be, one of the complaints we hear is folks stopped at this eastbound stop sign on Terrace Avenue are having some difficulty looking at southbound traffic approaching from the north on Parmenter Street. And with that parking restriction, that opens up that sight line.
And also, Carrie, one of the concerns that we heard during the public meetings is just how fast people drive down the hill, traveling north on Parmenter, like toward the downtown. And the hope is that having that island there is just going to make them feel more uncomfortable as they're coming down through Terrace Avenue, to hopefully make them slow down as they enter the true downtown.
Yeah, that's great. I know, because I know we had talked about potentially a 4-way stop here. I know it's been brought up from time to time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the committee didn't advocate for that, didn't recommend that be included in the plans. And a big part of it is historically, we've had plow trucks, and I'm assuming some other vehicles too, have real difficulty getting up this hill in winter if they first stop here. They almost need a little bit of momentum just to get up that hill without coming back down.
Okay. And was this the only island that's in the design? I can't remember. This is the only
Yeah, we had looked at a few different alternatives, including multiple more islands kind of along Parmenter near the intersections. And then at the end of the day, it just seemed like, well, there was going to be a lot less parking stalls available. It was going to remove a lot of the parking on Parmenter in the downtown, which, received a lot of negative feedback. And so we kind of settled with this. And then before this project design started, there were no stop signs on Parmenter at Hubbard. So those, even when the project design got delayed, the city went ahead and installed the stop signs there. And then as part of this project, we'll be adding the trombone arm overhead stop signs, just like at Elmwood. So those are the two
Yeah.
main pedestrian kind of safety type improvements that were included.
So that's the pedestrian improvement at Hubbard is just the stop sign.
Correct. And then I guess, well, the bollards too are kind of a combination pedestrian, stone horse green zone improvement.
Okay, thank you. That helps a lot. I know we had talked about this several times and I just couldn't recall exactly where it all landed.
Yeah, so this is consistent with the last plan that was approved by the committee, but it's been a couple of years.
Thanks for asking that, Carrie. Those were exactly my questions.
All right.
All right, do we have other questions or comments from the committee? What you're looking for here, Sean, is final plan approval?
Right, and direction to bid this for early construction.
Okay.
Can I just ask one more quick question what was any of the community feedback when you reached out about it? Was there concerns about timing? Was it more concern about pedestrian stuff? What were the concerns that you were hearing from the neighborhood? Do you remember?
I think, Sean, you've been hearing mostly from Andrea and Nest. Part of what I had heard from her, now this goes back to the last plan set, was to begin as early in spring as possible.
Okay.
Yeah, the downtown businesses, they seem to be happy with the plan as it is currently. They did want to get it started as soon as possible. And the other thing they asked is that we could have a weekly meeting with them. So on Monday mornings, I'll be meeting with at least one person representing the downtown to give them an update where the project's at, what's going to be going on that week. And we can try to coordinate any special events that they're going to be having. So.
Well, and I know they were interested too in making sure that one or the other of these intersections at Elmwood or Hubbard was open, so people could get across the street during construction. So that's a big part of why the staging is set up the way it is.
Yeah, the staging plan itself was really driven by the downtown businesses, I would say, because I think at day one, everything was kind of reversed, if I remember correctly. We'd kind of envisioned maybe a different order, and then after reaching out to the downtown businesses and then understanding when Stonehorse Green was going to get constructed, it just made more sense to get everything around Stonehorse Green done sooner than later before it gets really nice out and everybody, wants to use the new space even more, and then we can, stay away from there a little bit more.
Yeah, well, and I think the other thought was, well, let's get done with all the underground stuff first and then do the resurfacing sort of last, even though it's paved with the major parts. And that's why this little piece of Elmwood was considered stage 4 and this piece of Parmenter was considered stage 5 at the time. But it makes more sense to just pave the whole thing at once. And similarly, this T shape all at once.
Is there any anticipation of material shortages?
That is a little bit up in the air. It depends on who you talk to and what day it is, but that's part of the reason we're trying to bid this as soon as possible. Once this gets awarded, hopefully in first part of January, then the contractor can get materials ordered. I did hear a lot in the fall about possible shortages, but I'm hearing less of that now.
Yeah, ductile iron water main, Carl, has been one of the ongoing kind of question marks. I think there was a shortage a little bit this year, and some of the big contractors were pre-purchasing and kind of stockpiling. And so, part of it depends on, I'd say, what contractor wins the bid. And then I have been hearing, to Sean's point, that some local suppliers are getting more ductile in right now currently. It's just a little bit unknown after the first of the year what that means for availability and for pricing too. But I think, like I said, most of the medium to large size contractors, are starting to purchase some of that stuff already, I think, because they know they're going to use it.
We have had a few of the concrete suppliers talk about some possible issues there, but it remains to be seen. So
Okay.
the shorter answer is we really don't know right now.
Yeah, we're experiencing 40-week deliveries on HVAC equipment, so.
That sounds like all of our traffic signal stuff.
Yeah, I think we're into June now for the Parmenter University. So yeah,
Right.
Yeah, luckily there's no electrical anything on this project. It's
Right, but whoever thought like it'd be hard to get ready mix.
right.
Yeah, well, I think that, you know, trying to contract it at, you know, mid or beginning of January makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we plan on advertising 2 weeks from Thursday, so the week after Thanksgiving. And then those will be the bid advertisements with the bids due right before the holidays. And then it'll come back to Public Works and Council in early January for award.
Good.
Great.
All right, does anyone wish to make a motion regarding approval of the plans and the timetable?
I will go ahead and make a motion that we approve the plans and the timetable.
Is there a second to Kendra's motion?
This Carl, I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion with respect to the motion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the plan and the timetable is approved. That doesn't go to the council, right? The approval of the plan?
Nope, that's done at Public Works.
Okay, we're set to go with it then.
We are, yep.
All right, good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I'm wondering if the committee is open to skipping forward to agenda item number 6, which is the well 4 rehab contract, because I'm sure Tom has some interest in that too.
It's fine with me.
Let me zoom in a bit here. Boy, the auto sizing is really giving me some fun tonight.
There, that looks
There
pretty
we
good.
go. Yeah, so this is pretty similar. Yeah, and Dave Sarbacher's on our call too. So this is pretty similar to what we did last year with rehab of well 3, with looking into a little bit of electrical work too for portable generator hookup. But the scope of work is very similar. The price is very similar to last year's work. The overall project scope is pretty similar too. So the recommendation is to recommend to the Finance Committee and Council the task order to engage Strand Associates for this design, well, and construction phase services.
All right, committee, any questions regarding this item?
Can you just give me a quick overview of what this is for?
Sure. Do you want to, Dave or Tom, explain the nuts and bolts, and I can jump down to the task order itself that has.
Yeah, I'm looking it over right now, and this is the first time I've seen one of these, so if you could just kind of.
Sure. And
Sure.
the form of this thing, let me just, back up half a step. We have a master service agreement that we run every 2 years.
Okay,
And then when we need some relatively minor work done, we use that shell agreement and we just write a very specific scope with a very specific price. So it's really a very abbreviated proposal, but it uses all of the terms of our master agreement behind it.
Okay.
Sure, Dave, maybe if it's okay with you, Dave, maybe I'll let you give the zoomed out overview. I talked to Ryan. He gave me a brief update today, and he's the project manager for the water related projects, Ryan Wood. He said it's very similar to the last couple of years of rehab projects. And then we're adding in the sizing of a potential generator is what he described. But I don't know, Dave, did you want to maybe give a broader kind of historical context of what the city's done on the wells?
part of our regular maintenance on the wells themselves, the mechanical portions of the pumps.
Okay.
We rotate them through every 10 to 12 years, and it ends up being every other year we do one of our 6 wells. So that's just a standard maintenance. It's not causing us problems, but we do this maintenance to help stay away from those types of occurrences. So it's just a standard maintenance to keep it up to operating capacity.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, are we ready for action?
Yes, I will make a motion that we approve.
And we'll just recommend this to Finance and Council.
Finance Committee and the council, right? All right, is there a second to Kendra's motion?
This is
Carl,
Carrie, I'll
I'll-
second.
I think I got Carl on that. So
All right. You can get the next one, Kim.
it was really close. Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this issue? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that will be our recommendation of the Finance Committee and the council.
All right. And maybe while Dave's here, he's interested in the sanitary sewer rates, which is item 7 on our agenda, if you don't mind going out of order for that.
We might as well.
Yep, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep, have a good night. Thank you.
So this would be, and we do this every year. We
Year.
modify our sanitary sewer rates to keep up with MMSD's rates, and they usually tell us in late October what next year's charges are going to be. And then Dave also reviews it through a spreadsheet tool to look at our overall capital system planning for sanitary sewer facilities to come up with proposed rate changes. So the
Well, this is-
recommendation here is to recommend this to the Finance Committee and Council as well.
Cut and dried stuff that we do every year.
Ramsey will move that we recommend these changes to Finance and Council.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
This is Kendra, I'll second.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we will so recommend to the Finance Committee and the council.
Did you have any interest, Dave, in the sanitary sewer easement encroachment thing? Mostly I've
No,
been
I've
dealing
looked
with
fine.
that.
As far as I'm concerned, that looked good.
Okay. I'll bounce back then just to get us back on track to item 4, which is our streetlight fixture standards. Which are out of date, and we knew they would be out of date, but we've been waiting for MG&E to pick some standards, and they finally did for LED lighting, some standards. So one of our bigger architectural lights looks like this top image, and for a very short time, architectural lighting made this in an LED retrofit kit, but they stopped doing that. I don't know if they just had too many problems. They completely started over and retooled it and just built an LED fixture. But it looks pretty rectangular now. Madison has been using something that is a little bit closer in aesthetics to what we've got, but it's fairly pricey, not that our existing ones aren't. And I tossed in as an option here, well, asked Tom if he'd consider tossing it in as an option, and he thought, let's talk about it. is one of the MG&E standards that has a very different look and a very different price tag.
Why is it so different in price?
Yeah, really.
I don't know. I know MG&E did a lot of work, and they've been working on it for years to try to find something that's reliable and, you know, easy to get a hold of and relatively inexpensive, because those are big things for them. But yeah, I was very surprised that it's like 9 times cheaper. I can
Why-
tell you that I've never had anyone call me and say, I hate the look of that street light. They only ever tell me if it's on and they wished it were somewhere else, or it's off and they really want it back on.
Does the knob on top of it do something? Is it a functioning like, or is that just,
I think this is their photocell receptacle, so it tells if it's dark or not. I don't know if the others are more internal or where those are hidden. But I'm pretty sure that's their photocell.
You're probably not going to see much of that.
right?
Yeah, I've never had an aesthetic complaint on our street lighting,
No.
including the wood poles. Nobody
So
complains about that.
so MG&E has validated the performance and the reliability and the longevity of these.
Well, they
It's
tell us
basically
that
what
now.
you're
I don't
saying.
know. Yeah, I don't know how they measure longevity, because it takes years to wear these out if they're doing well, but
Yeah,
that's what they tell us, yeah.
okay.
How long has MG&E been using that as a standard, you know, Sean?
I don't, but it can't be a couple of years, you know, pretty short time.
So there's not much data on reliability in any of it.
Not in the field that I'm aware of, no.
Well, if you don't get any complaints about the looks of them, I just can't see spending $1,900 more for option 2, or even $1,000 more for option 1. It's a huge price difference.
Yeah.
I myself was shocked when he showed me that price, and I thought, wait, what? We have, yeah, just been bleeding money on these things.
Yeah.
What what was Madison's reasoning in using them along Pleasant View?
I think that's a standard for them. I see these in lots of places in Madison, and I think they just like the looks.
And Sean, these wouldn't be placed downtown or anything like that, right? Like where we maybe would care a little bit more about the aesthetics. Because I think that I have heard people say, like, I mean, street lighting is kind of a big deal to make like a downtown more quaint and more, you know, I think that is a big deal. It just, even though maybe people don't realize it, they don't maybe pinpoint like what is making this town look more pleasant to be in. But it's just like everything put together, right? So that's like one aspect to consider. So I wouldn't want this to start to maybe be the standard everywhere.
Well, and that's one of our other problems. We don't have a standard everywhere. We just have a standard. So we have a Cobra headlight. That's our standard. Unless somebody like the Public Works Committee or Council says, no, in this subdivision, we're going to do whatever, or in the downtown, we're going to do something else. Part of the problem with downtown is, you know, of the little black pedestrian level lights, we have 3 or maybe 4 different styles of those because the manufacturer kept changing styles, and finally they stopped making them, so we had to find a different manufacturer. So just getting specialty stuff sometimes is difficult. Middleton Hills is crazy difficult to replace at any price. But I think those fixtures are like $5,000 or $6,000. And at the time, there's no way they cost that much, but they do now. So that's one of the other factors that we bang into is a developer might say, great, let me put in this. And 20 years later, it's really hard to maintain it with that look. So
But
I
isn't that
hear
why?
that.
isn't that why we should have a standard then? And if the developer decides that they want to come in for whatever reason in the Middleton Hills or wherever and wants to put in something different, then generally speaking, most new areas now have, HOAs. We should have some kind of developer agreement that if you want something that's 10 times what we would normally replace, then, you're going to have to pony up.
I think that's a fair thing. I know with other developments, like Bishop's Bay, for instance, right? They wanted really decorative stop signs. And we said, great, we're going to enter into an agreement that says, whenever these stop signs get hit, you have to pay for them. Otherwise, we'll put up a standard stop sign. And they were happy to do that. Other developers, in fact, we'll probably be asking this very question soon with Bell Farm. If you want something really special, are you willing to replace it into the future?
In effect, isn't that what we did in Bishop's Bay for the streetlights too? They have different street lighting, I think, don't they?
They do, but we did not include that in a future maintenance agreement. Those are just city lights now.
So we're on the hook for replacing those irrespective of the cost.
Correct.
I just think that there needs to be some kind of standard that if you want something special in your neighborhood, then why should the rest of the city pay $5,000 for your light when we're paying $500 for them throughout the rest of the city?
I agree. But that's not before us this evening.
But the question of whether or not we should have a standard is before us, and and what price point we want the standard. So it just goes to my comfort level with option number 3.
Okay.
And it's a great point, I think, because we're going to be faced with this everywhere, including the downtown, which is, us. But yeah, so this first question really was just about Pleasant View Road north of 14 in the business park, Airport Road, and Parmenter Street north of the roundabout. And that's what had this kind of fixture, and we can't get them anymore. So we need a different standard.
And you're replacing everything in that area, not just like every other, or it is replacing
Well,
every single one of them?
We generally only replace them when they stop working. So we don't
Okay.
just go through and say, hey, this mile-long stretch of street lighting is going out.
Right. So you could have the current fixture, the heirloom next to this comfort view for
Right.
several years.
That could be a decade before they all look the same again.
And is there, I mean, with the problem that I always have with LEDs, and I'm new to this, but is there a difference in color between these brands as far as the lighting that they're going to be putting off? Are you going to have a yellowish tinge in one spot and then the next block is going to be more blue? Or, I mean, are we going to run into some inconsistencies there?
Well, there's the color rendering. So HPS is a pretty yellow light.
Okay.
You can buy LED in a pretty, warm yellowish
Right.
brown sort of color. But the light itself is different, so I think HPS tends to be a softer light, and LED just by its nature tends to be a little bit more glaring bright.
Okay. So when it says discontinued an LED version, it just means we don't have any of those current LED versions then.
Yeah, and I think that was a
Okay.
retrofit kit that fit into
Okay.
the old HPS ones.
Okay.
And
I
then
don't
they
know,
stopped doing it.
So Sean, you're saying we don't have any LED current street lighting?
Oh, we have some
That would be-
LED street lighting, but I don't know that we have any of this style in Airport or Pleasant View or Parmenter. We might, but I don't know that. I think they're still all HPS.
Well, given the longevity of these streetlights, there's no guarantee that if you adopt a standard that thing that you adopt as the standard is still going to be manufactured in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years.
That is correct, right? That's always a risk that comfort view as a style may massage over time, or it may just go away and a different style becomes an MG&E standard. So yeah, that's the game. Everyone is
Shooting at a moving
constantly
target.
changing. Yeah. So part of what we wanted to do was figure out if you know, trying to match the look was really important, then we need to be prepared to pay for that. And if getting light on the street was important, matching an MG&E fixture may be our best bet going forward. And frankly, even if we run out of stock, we could probably just borrow one from them.
I mean, I would argue on the Pleasant View Road part. South. Well, so we're talking about on Pleasant View, it's just north of Highway 14. So not, what's being used on the new construction?
The
That's
new
it.
construction is right now scheduled to get these.
The same, so it's gonna match Madison. Okay,
Gonna match Madison, except their color is different than ours. They use silver and we use black. So it will look different anyway.
but not, I don't know. I have a real hard time with the look of that Comfort View. I know it's a lot cheaper, but but I mean, all these, everything that everyone has said is point well made, so I don't know.
I agree with you, Kendra, that especially if it'd be different if it was a whole section, like you said, that was being replaced, and then maybe it would look more coherent. But like if it's just here and there, it's just so different that I do worry a little bit about the aesthetics. And then also I think you brought up a good point about the color of the lighting too. I mean, we could start to get complaints at that point if it's, you know, maybe really different. And again, like I think it just, for me, it really depends on where this is going. If it's more of like a business park area, then maybe it's okay to have that. But if it's like a, you know, downtown shops where there's more pedestrian traffic and things like that, I think I wouldn't want to adopt that as a standard everywhere. I think it depends on the parts of the city.
Yeah, so I guess what we're really talking about here is, are we standardizing just like the desire to standardize it?
Well, I do have that
Yes.
desire. So question one was area specific. Question two in this memo
Okay,
really
is
is,
to
what
adopt,
should our
right.
standard be? And that standard then is unless some city committee says otherwise. And the conditions under which the city says otherwise may be variable. So part of the thing is right now we do have a standard. If nobody else says anything else, we're going to have a concrete pole with a 6-foot arm on it and a silver Cobra head fixture. It looks very much like this. That's our standard.
Okay,
If nobody else says anything else.
Are those still manufactured, Sean?
You know, that's a good question. I don't know. I just know we were trying to get away from high pressure sodium and get LEDs into our system. So whenever these things fail now to the point that they need repair, MG&E is getting them out of their system. And I think we want to do the same thing. So when MG&E goes after these, they're using this or this, depending on the equivalent wattage that they're trying to replace. So we're going to start seeing these Comfort View ones more and more instead of the standard Cobra head ones.
in areas that don't have a standardized choice.
Everything made by MG&E, right? Or everything, I'm sorry, owned by MG&E.
Owned by MG&E.
Just Sean, you
And,
said it needs to
places
be a
where we've installed
maximum-
them. Oh, sorry, Carrie.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and every place we've installed them, that we also own them, just because that's our standard, I think we would want to replace with this too. But that is the second question for the committee.
And then Sean, you were saying though that the option 2 is used in the city of Madison, but that's not their standard. They're just used there.
Oh, I don't know if they have a standard like we've been trying to push for. Well, frankly, that we do have, except that we don't use our standard everywhere. I don't know if they're just set up that everything's on its own merits, or if they have a standard and then, like us, routinely use something else.
I misunderstood that from earlier. Okay.
So they have a lot of these that I see around, except they're silver instead of black. But I don't know if it's like their default.
Oh. I thought I had misunderstood earlier and I assumed that they had adopted that as the standard. So I
Okay,
misunderstood that.
yeah, it certainly is a standard, but I don't know if it's the standard.
It's like the standard, yeah, okay.
Well, what's your pleasure, committee? We have 2 questions.
I like the idea of establishing well, I don't know, like in some ways, if we establish a standard, then this question won't be brought up to us, right? In terms of like, oh, the downtown's being, we're fixing the lighting, and then just that standard would be placed, right? Like, I'm just trying to think like, how would somebody go about potentially changing it, right? Like, I would want the question to be posed, I guess. And like, where in the process would that be posed to anyone, like staff or committee?
Yeah, that's a great question, is how does it come up, or how does anyone remember to trigger to come back and say, hey, we're replacing these things, and do you want to see 6 options or just the standard? Yeah, I don't know.
I guess that's my concern about doing it, like having a standard. I like the idea of having options for different use types, right? Like different, like I don't know, just business park versus downtown, right? Like something like that. I don't know all the different variations, but it seems like there should be standards for different lighting situations.
I'd be happy with that, frankly. I mean, downtown doesn't have a lighting style. It has lots of lighting styles.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you
It
can
sort of
adopt a
depends.
standard for new developments and new subdivisions and what have you. And then if developers want something different, I think Dan's point was well taken. You say, fine, you pay for whatever it is that you want to be different. And then in the future, if those have to be replaced and it costs more money than our standard, then that your homeowners association will take care of.
And for new subdivisions, that might be easier. I think Terry's point is good, that, what about an existing neighborhood that's had street lighting forever? What do we do about that? And it may be difficult to come back every time there's a different neighborhood and say to the committee, well, what do you want in this neighborhood? Because there's so many options of styles that it would be a difficult question even to ask.
Well, those are all going to be replaced, I assume, in existing neighborhoods. This just gets done on an ad hoc basis. One goes out and you replace it. You don't replace a whole neighborhood if 2 streetlights go out.
Yeah, right. And so if it's a Cobra head style, maybe that's easy to say, okay, that's our replacement for a Cobra head style. But, when we've got things that are pretty much like this in the Terrace Avenue parking lot, do we want to replace them with something like this? Or do we want to replace these old HPS fixtures with something like this? Because it's LED, but it looks kind of the same. And I think, remembering to ask that question and say, oh, here's 5 options for Terrace Avenue parking lot, which is different than Terrace Avenue, which is different than Hubbard Avenue.
Yeah, but I like where you're going with that, Sean, in terms of like, if it's the Cobra head lighting style, then just replace it with the comfort view, because it's kind of the same. It's already kind of not that aesthetically pleasing, right? Like, I mean, just like it's kind of matching more of the style. I think that should be considered along with the cost. But yeah, I see what you're saying. It creates maybe more work in terms of just asking those questions every time the area gets brought up.
Right, yeah, because we've never considered these decorative. It's just our standard, it's our default. Unless somebody says otherwise. It's replacing all the decorative ones that become more difficult. Do we want 15 standards, or do we want to have 3?
So
Or
what do
maybe-
you,
I
Or
think
was
replacing a decorative with another decorative option makes sense to me, because there was a reason why it was selected in the first place. It's serving some kind of function. So maybe we do have, like you said, maybe it's only like 3 standards, right? I don't know. I don't think it has to be a lot, but maybe more than 1, I think would be best.
Okay, so for this particular case, if one of these breaks, and you prefer that we don't use this one, do you have a preference between these two, the one that looks a little more boxy or the one that looks a little bit more truncated dome shaped?
I don't. I think they both look similar enough.
Well, they both look
Between-
similar, but there's a $700 difference in price, basically.
How can you justify
Right.
that?
That I would go then with option 1.
It wins on price, but loses on aesthetics.
Isn't that always the way?
From these photos, option 3, it's really hard to figure out what it really looks like, to tell you the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah,
I
I'd
don't
have to go
think
to
it's
the internet.
square,
to
or
bring
is
up
it
one.
I mean,
rounded?
most of these you're gonna see from below, and this doesn't give you that option or that.
Right, or driving down the
I was
street,
trying
you'll
to
see a
go on the
little
Comfort View
profile.
website to look at what I was trying to look to see if they have any photos on that website to see, because I agree, Carl, it's hard to tell what it would actually look like.
The second page kind of gives a better, you can kind of see the color, the white underside of the white shows up a little bit better.
Oh, here, for the lenses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I almost think the light is
Um,
small.
Do we have any application for the MG&E high output? I mean,
I know that they're like a type 3 distribution standard, but I don't know what their illuminance is.
or
I
where
can't
their,
see it.
where their application is for that?
These are
I mean,
all road
this-
lighting.
Is this more of a belt line type fixture? High
No.
output?
No, no, these are pretty low wattage fixtures. I mean, we don't get a lot of light out of a 70-watt HPS fixture. 150 is pretty solid lighting, but most of ours are like 100, 150, most of our street lights.
Yeah, but that's for sodium.
Yes, and so these are made
And
sort
so
of as
I mean, that's
equivalents.
not a direct comparison to the LED wattage.
It's not, no.
You gotta look at the lumen numbers, not the wattage numbers.
Yep. And I think they do that in the background, but then they report it all back out as a wattage number for the most part. So I'm certain they have internal charts. I remember that in the case of when I was looking up their 100-watt equivalent, they said, well, then you would order a 48-watt LED. And for a 150, you would order a, what was it, 66 watt LED to get sort of the equivalent street lighting.
Yeah, where, do you know where these
And I
are
think,
installed?
you know, I think a good starting point is to say, our standard is, you know, the comfort view. If you don't like that, what are you proposing and how are you proposing to pay for it?
And Carl, are you saying that for like everywhere? It doesn't matter where? In the
Yep.
city of Middleton?
That's the starting point, right?
Or I could see where I think Carrie's suggestion earlier was for consideration that Cobra heads get replaced with these, or things that look sort of similar get replaced with those. But something that looks more like this should have a different standard entirely. And maybe we have 3 or 4 standards at different price points. Still the harder question for me is where, because we don't want 20 standards. Well, I don't.
Well, that's where Carl's point.
How do you apply even 4 standards? I mean, it just.
Yeah, right. But that's where Carl's point of option 3
You
is.
start out with 1 standard and then make exceptions from that.
Exactly.
Variances.
But if you have the one standard,
It
how would
automatically
it-
kicks in. It automatically kicks in if somebody doesn't like our standard. There was the question as to, well, how do we know that, or how does that go back to the committee? Well, if that's our standard and the downtown says, well, we don't like that standard, then it automatically comes back to the committee then. So I mean, it's somebody's going to bring it to your attention in those areas, Bishop's Bay or downtown or wherever there's something different.
back, right?
What's
So like
that?
if it's our standard, a light bulb goes out downtown, it just gets replaced. And then somebody complains about it after the fact. So like that's my concern, is like, how do we put in some kind of mechanism where before something's replaced, it would be reviewed by the businesses or, whoever it might impact.
Exactly. Yep. And that's the tougher trigger. I mean, do you do that on every light before replacing it? Because I don't think the committee wants to do that.
No.
No, committee does not want to do that.
No, and I like, and that's where the comfort view, I just think it's so different looking that it doesn't seem like a great option it's not an all size fits all option, I don't think. I wish it were at that price point, but I just think that it's very odd
Right.
looking.
Yeah. Well, and some of our fixtures really are made to be mounted at their top. They hang down from a bracket. Some of them actually are mounted at the bottom, so they're perched on top of a bracket. Most of ours come off the side like this, but not all of them. So we can't use this everywhere. We're just trying to take care of most of our stuff somehow.
Now, would it be possible for staff to kind of try to come up with a standard for business park versus downtown versus, or maybe it's more like decorative versus, what'd you call it, the Cobra head, like to have like just maybe a couple options, and maybe the comfort view is considered in all of those options.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, we could say, well, this is our standard for Cobra heads, and unless we hear different, but if there's an architectural / decorative feature, maybe we want a plan B in our pocket. We can look into this further, because believe me, there's no shortage of choices when it comes to lighting. There's so many manufacturers and so many styles. But that's part of our problem. So
Yeah, I think to me that sounds like a good option, because then if it's just Cobra head, it just gets replaced. Like that's the standard for that. But if it is decorative, then it gets reviewed as like, oh, here's a couple options.
Okay, and that's really, I mean, so question 2, I think I'm hearing consensus. If it's Cobra Head, we go with MG&E. No questions asked, we just do it. I think there's consensus there. This other question I think is still open, and if we don't reach resolution on it tonight, that's okay. We can, as staff, see if there are options to these things when they fail, other than options 1 and 2, because they're pretty pricey. Maybe there's a different option 3 that would have a lower price point that I just don't know about.
I'm going to ask, my former company's got a whole staff of lighting designers. I'm going to ask them for some cheap but nifty fixture recommendations.
I love that. I wish I had a whole staff full of lighting designers. No, I don't.
We'll see if they can come up with a consensus.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
All right, so then do we wish to take no action on any of this evening, or was, if there was consensus on replacing the Cobra heads with that one version?
Sean, are we at a point in the business
Go ahead.
park and on Airport Road that this is necessary, that it needs to get done? Are there fixtures, or is this just something?
I think Tom Weber is our engineering tech that does most of our tracking and database management of our lighting fixtures. I think he was focused on this question only because the Pleasant View Road project south of 14 is coming up. And
Okay,
he was kind of saying, well, geez, north of 14, we have these. What are we going to do when we have to replace that? Because they don't make this anymore.
okay. So he was just looking, and that's kind of what raises that continuity question too. Okay,
Right.
okay. So there's no timely issue at hand. Okay.
I've never thought that about street lighting because cars have, most of the cars have headlights. We'd get by if one's missing.
No, Kendra, in our neighborhood, we don't have any, so.
I know.
Some neighborhoods like that. I
Gotta
get
keep
really
your,
angry when I put in a street light.
yeah.
Mhm. I kind of like the idea of maybe not taking action until we hear back from Carl's lighting designers. I think that would be my preference, but I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that.
Oh, why don't I make a motion then to defer this item until we get more information back from Carl's lighting crew?
Are we asking staff to put any recommendations together, like Carrie mentioned? Or we want to hear from Carl's crew first?
I'd love to hear from Carl. That might narrow it down from 10,000 choices to like 6.
Okay,
All right, do we have a second to Dan's motion?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and Carl, we will eagerly await the report from your lighting division. That maybe can shed some light on this question.
but
Right? I know, you can't imagine how expensive it is to hold a light bulb off the ground. So by my score sheet, the last thing we've got on our agenda is this resolution, which would approve a block retaining wall in our sanitary sewer easement along 8410 Murphy Drive. Let me just skip to the picture because I think it's better. So this is in the business park on Murphy Drive. And also their driveway comes in here and just around a little bit of a bend. This is a very steep slope from the neighboring property that heads down and has been sort of sloughing into their parking lot. So this is all vehicle parking stalls, 90-degree vehicle parking stalls. And as this slope has been sort of creeping down, they finally decided, well, let's put up this block retaining wall. that's all well and good, but it's very nearly on top of our very deep sanitary sewer. So when you look in the cross section of it, their block wall is only 4 feet tall, give or take, but our sewer is pretty deep. That's like 20 feet down from their parking lot. I'm supportive of them solving their problem in this way. And this is the kind of block that would unstack pretty handily if we need to. They're 2x2x6 precast blocks, so they're pretty significant blocks. But they have lifting hooks on them so they could come back apart if we need to. Frankly, if something goes bad with that sewer, I think this would be a good case for trying to do an in-place lining instead of dig it up and replace it. Especially considering how steep this slope is on the west side, but still, they should have gotten permission to do this before doing this. And one of our guys noticed it, and we've been working on this almost a year with them to get this drawing put together.
So is this under construction now, or has it been constructed?
It is complete. It has been constructed. It was built last year.
So if we disagree with the easement, what are we gonna do? Tell them to take it apart?
Well, in theory, yes. Or at least put them on notice that whenever we feel like, we're just going to tell them to take it apart, which is almost what this encroachment easement.
Didn't we have another one of these just a short time ago where somebody was looking for an easement for some sort of a retaining wall or something or other, but it had already been built?
Yeah, we run into this every now and then where people do stuff. And then we find out about it. More often than not, we give them permission for it.
Well, I suppose it's good to clean things up by having an easement recorded, but it's not a good situation if people just go ahead and do these things and then we find out about it by accident.
Tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of extra paperwork at the end to first convince them that they should have done this in the right order.
Is there, do they not have to have a permit to do these things?
Not for a retaining wall that I'm aware of, no. They need usually a fence permit. I've not seen one for a retaining wall, oddly.
Well, because that would be the question, if you're gonna do a retaining wall and it looks like it's gonna be there. And we had some kind of permitting system that could warn the property owner that, hey, you're not where you're supposed to be, A, or B, if the property owner went ahead and did that, then, you know, you could slap their hand a little bit. Now you have to pay double the permit fee because you started your construction before you got the permit.
Yeah, well, I think our fence permit is like $10. So if somebody did, they'd end up paying 20. But we lose a lot of staff time because of stuff like this.
So what are they, I guess I'm like to start over with it. What are they trying to solve here? Do they need this retaining wall to solve a problem?
Yeah, let me go back to the diagram in cross section. So this area that's on their property comes down really steep right to the edge of their parking lot. And it's been sloughing and sort of burying parts of their parking lot, but there are cars trying to park, you know, with their nose up against this wall. So when the soil has been washing down, their 18-foot spot becomes sort of a 16 or a 12-foot deep parking spot. And then their back end's hanging out in the truck delivery area. So their big problem was they're trying to hold this steep slope from getting onto their parking stalls.
Is there another solution?
I think this was a reasonable solution, both to address the problem and for the cost involved. And frankly, it comes apart pretty well. If it were a poured wall, that would be a bigger problem.
I mean, to dig that trench that's 20 feet down would be a pretty significant issue.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that day.
Yeah, if it ever happens.
Exactly, that'll be somebody else's problem, but yeah. I mean, just trying to dig 20 feet's a hassle, but when you got that slope hanging on you.
I'm not sure I've ever seen standard showing that you can drag on the site that's 20 feet high.
No,
So in order to get that, I don't know how you got that in the first place.
that probably got put in before there were any buildings anywhere near here.
Yeah, but even with that slope was existing, right?
It, unless it all got filled, because this other site is much higher,
Oh,
heading over
Okay.
toward Parview.
yeah.
So it's possible it got filled.
So it looks like there's what, a communication line in there too, but it's probably not that low, huh?
Right, and there's an MG&E transformer right here, so there's electric hanging over on the east side of this. I don't know at what depth, but say, 3-4 feet down,
Yeah.
not very far away.
So are you suggesting that this is okay? Or,
Yes, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
fine with this as their solution to their problem, and I don't think it handcuffs us enough to really lose sleep over.
okay,
So I'd be in favor of us approaching or recommending this to the council.
I make a motion that we recommend approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second to Carl's motion?
Ramsey, a second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and that will be our recommendation of the council to approve this easement agreement. Is there, I don't know, it's after the fact, but I mean, in doing this, is there a way to contact that property owner and reprimand them a little bit or something or other? I mean, it just seems like people kind of get off scot-free. They just do whatever the hell they want without getting permission to do it, and then the city approves it after the fact.
Always
Yeah,
easier forgiveness, not permission, right?
I think that's part of it. And I think part of it too is sometimes property owners are just so unaware of their property. It always mystifies me because I was very well versed in this property before I bought it, but that doesn't seem always to be the case. And while I would say, I've been in discussions with this property owner for literally a year. I mean, it was last spring when we found stuff out, and just getting a diagram together was an exercise, and getting it all reviewed was an exercise, and it's that staff time that becomes really frustrating. Is like, wait a minute, you were the guy doing the wrong thing here, and I'm spending my time trying to make it right now. And
But if you were talking to these people a year ago, is that what you're saying about this project?
yeah, I think it was a year.
Before they had done the construction, or how long has the construction been completed?
I don't know how far before that it was done, because it was, again, noticed by one of our guys going by that said, that's weird, there's a retaining wall right on our sewer. And at first we thought it was right on the sewer. It turns out to be slightly offset. But when we're 20 feet deep, the weight of this is not our big issue. It's just, why is there something structural there? So we
All
just
right.
want it to be really clear that when we say it has to go, it has to go, and it's not getting paid for besides. It was never permitted to be there.
Yeah,
And so, part of our discussion at one point was, well, if we can't reach agreement on this, then we just need you to take it out.
all right, well, we have done what we have done.
So I think that
On-
was everything. Yeah, it is.
The magic hour has arrived, someone.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those
Aye.
opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and we stand adjourned until next time.
All right.
All right, thank you, everyone. See you next time. Happy.